Boom. I think we are live. Trailer Trash should not have internet because that took forever to figure out.
Live and in living color. Here we are. We're figuring it out.
Yeah, sorry, guys. We said one, but we struggle with internet, or this live stream shit. It's really hard to figure out sometimes. So hopefully,
and we seem to forget literally every time we go and try to do this exactly how to set it all up and get it ready to go. So it takes a little bit longer. We probably should have said 1:30, but here we are.
Yeah,
punctual as usual.
So some recent events have occurred, if anybody's noticed. No, Film Gob's not first. Somebody already beat you to it, Film Gob. Checking. So a lot of news has come out, and a lot of interesting things anyway. And we had this article by The Ringer, which I have personally never heard of, but they have a decent following on Twitter. And they did a pretty elaborate article on the Snydercut and the Snydercut movement in itself. So this was kind of interesting because, you kind of get some Wall Street Journal PTSD flashbacks here on how poorly done. And he even name drops that article as well and doesn't all out fucking say that it's a piece of crap. But hey, what you going to do? But this one I thought was interesting. Kneel Before Zach, which is, hey, it's a better title than that Wall Street Journal article.
Yeah. Aside from at times I felt like I was reading an article written by Movie Bob, just how many words. I feel like there was a minimum word usage that he had to have or something like this or something like that. As you're reading through the entire article, is written by Rob Harvilla. And he does have a couple times where he mentions they're almost a little backhanded, kind of. Even when he's talking about some of Zack Snyder's previous DC movies, he mentions how moody they are, how they're gritty and ultra-violent and grimly ludicrous. So if you quickly bypass that, then maybe it won't irritate you as much as it irritated me. But aside from that, he actually does a great job at spelling everything out, what the Snyder Cut means, why there are loyal followers, what happened. So I feel like this would be a great article to pass off to a friend who may not be as familiar with it as we are.
Yeah, the thing is clear that he is not a fan of Zack Snyder, which to me, or Zack Snyder's movies, we'll just say that. I'm not going to say he hates the person, but his movies. And that to me actually gives this, I know some people don't like that, the fact that he kind of, he uses the buzzwords that we've seen over and over again about Zack Snyder movies. But to me, that also leads a little bit more credibility to the whole thing that he did actually try. He did look at it somewhat objectively, even though he clearly does not prefer Zack Snyder's movies. The words you just described, yeah, that they're all over the place in here with that. And he did a little podcast as well. And I listened to him on there as well. And yeah, him and whoever the other guy was that he was talking to clearly do not like Zack Snyder movies. I mean, that one other guy even calls Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman dog shit, which I was just like, wow, okay. But they did give it its somewhat just, results for the most part. He didn't ignore Vero, which is one of the things that always annoys me about people when they do articles, is that the fact that Zack Snyder has been posting stuff on Vero like crazy. A lot of evidence about his movie and about how he feels about Justice League is all there on Vero. And I always felt like every article we ever read just ignores fucking Vero unless it's just a quick pop on their quick hit for their articles and stuff like that. They'll post one thing like Snyder said this, and then they'll just fucking forget about it completely. So I always found that to be quite annoying overall.
Yeah, but for the most part, what's cool about this article is other people have started taking more notice, it seems like, to the Snyder Cut movement and really the power that all of these loyal followers have. Budgie Smuggler, yes, this is live and not a figment, I think is what you meant, not a pigment of your imagination.
Wow, but you just got corrected by Shane.
Yeah, feels shitty. Just kidding. Just kidding. Welcome. We appreciate it. And Budget Smuggler has left the live stream. Um, but it's really cool how many different articles you see on Yahoo Movies, on MovieWeb, things like that, IndieWire. They are pulling information from this article, really sharing just how powerful that this movement has and can be. I mean, raising over $20,000 for not just for San Diego Comic-Con, but also a portion of that going to the I always forget the essentially suicide prevention. I forget the acronym all the time.
AFSP, I think.
Yeah, thank you. But still, pretty awesome stuff. That the power that this whole group has, and it's nice to see, and maybe a somewhat positive twist. If this article from the Ringer is any example of maybe a positive side, I'll take it, because this is as positive as you see, unless it comes from Mr. Colbert himself. It seems like.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing that shows progress. And because of this article and some of the traction it got, it, like you said, it spurred out other articles and like UK movies and stuff like that. Yahoo UK movies or whatever like that. They're doing articles about it, like how far along is it? And it's no longer whether or not it exists in some sense, unless you're John Campea. It's not it's not about exists and all this other things and shit like that. It's just like, okay, it exists. It's at a certain degree of doneness. What do we do now? And I think this article actually brings up some interesting precedents. It's hard to, in some sense, understand whether or not this thing can get released, because there may or may not have been a precedent set. Now, people used, obviously, people brought up Richard Donner and the Donner Cut, and that took 26 years. And I found that to be, for the most part, it's a pretty good correlation because of what they happen. And if you haven't listened to our Richard Donner history lesson video, check that one out. It's a year old now, so some of the information about Snyder is a little meh, but it's on just listen to the Donner stuff mainly, and I think it's pretty telling that it's pretty close. The biggest thing though is Donner's version to me is, yes, a different movie, and there is a lot of different elements to it. But when you compare the fact of Lester's version to Donner, it still has the main villains. It still has still has the same villains. It still has obviously Superman, Lois Lane, and it's just presented story different. Now, when you're talking about Snyder's version, you're talking from rumor, and it's almost somewhat confirmed at this point, but you're talking about almost a different villain with Darkseid being in it. So many actors that would have to be credited, because obviously the Ares actor Nick McKinless, he's talking about he never got credited, only as a stunt coordinator, or he only got a stunt credit anyway. And that is a big difference, because now you're starting to have to pay a lot of different actors, a lot of different things change. I think even Clay Anos talked about this on his podcast on a podcast with the Comic Book Debate guys, talking about it'd have to be a completely different IMDb. Like it's a vastly different movie than what we got in theaters. And it makes it really hard to say it's that simple to just put it out there, because there's so many different characters. There is so many different actors involved, and the level of complexity it has as well. So it is an interesting thing, and it does bring it grounded a little bit to the fact of, well, is there a precedent for it? And it's kind of hard to really say there is.
Yeah, I'm reading through some of these questions. I don't know about a Pulitzer, but we appreciate that. And Smuggler, glad you're still here. Found our videos by searching the Donner Cut, so pretty awesome. I agree with Matt that we're in a different ballpark now, but I do think that the Donner Cut history is obviously repeating itself, and there can be some optimism that we can use with the Donner Cut. It took a really long time, and going back to the Ringer article, it was cool that Rob brought in some of people like Chris Wong Swenson, and interviewed him to get kind of his opinion, And I think a lot of us share kind of the same opinion that this is we're in this for the long haul. And it's really all about how Warner Brothers can figure out the rights and giving proper credit and things like that. And I'm sure they can. I unfortunately I also think there's probably a workaround that they probably have. I know a lot of people going kind of using a wrestling reference, which we always do on this show. A lot of people are pissed off because the WWE has a workaround where they can use the characters. They can use previously videos and things like that, and content that was owned by WCW or ECW or whoever, and they don't really have to pay those wrestlers directly for using their likeness, which is very fascinating. So a lot of wrestlers have tried to sue the WWE. I think that there's been consistent, from what I've been seeing, there's been consistent ongoing battles where people are like, how can you use this classic content and then not pay the wrestlers for that content? And I'm not saying WB does have that, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did, if they had some sort of, well, we'll give you credit for it, we can pay you X amount of dollars for that, and then they can kind of move on from it. But what that also lends itself to is the budget, and the ultimate budget of trying to get this thing completed and trying to reproduce it and distribute it again. And that was something that they were willing to do with the Donner Cut, is reinvest a portion of money to go, okay, we are going to finish this. We're going to, send you back to the studio. I think it took a year. If I'm right on that, where Donner went back into the studio and worked on certain things, pieced things together. They were able to have a little bit of video editing to change, nighttime to daytime or vice versa, or, these minor things that of how he wanted his movie to originally be, and kind of splice things together. So that's ultimately what happens. But I still think it'll be a lot sooner than the Donner Cut, but this is going to be the long game.
Yeah. It's different with that, because with Donner, it was the biggest hurdle they had with Donner was the Marlon Brando estate, was dealing with them and how they're going to have to obviously credit him and what his deal was and everything. And that was the biggest hurdle they had to do. And sadly, really at the time, the main reason why was because Bryan Singer wanted the Marlon Brando version for Superman Returns. So they were kind of already working on that beforehand. Mm-hmm. So it kind of worked in their favor to do it. I'm not saying that that's kind of what helped it along, even though there wasn't as big of a demand for the Donner Cut as there is for the Snyder Cut. Yo, what's up, guys? Some people are saying yo.
Yo.
The Donner Cut video is great. Thank you very much. I'm not going to even try to say TBS Tubak. If you want to boycott DC films, man, that's up to you. I mean, there's some comments now that I even have ready up here from Toby Emmerich here that just kind of like, come on, man. Like, why are you even saying this crap? Because anybody that even follows it knows that you're just a bull-faced liar at this point. And why you're even trying to stay face, I have no idea. Because you either make a good enough movie for casuals to enjoy it, to build your box office, or not. So to say certain things that he did is just just stupid overall. I did find it funny, though, that, you remember, because obviously we've all been in this for a very long time. Shane and I have been back from day one. And it's kind of funny when you go back and you look at some of these comments. And this was actually commented, or this was actually put out by Toby Emmerich at this point, saying Snyder, after screening a rough cut of Justice League for fellow filmmakers and friends, wanted to add additional scenes. So he brought Whedon on board to write them, which we know is not true. But, excuse me. But as he prepared to shoot the scenes in England, Snyder realized it was not the time to leave home. The directing is minimal, and it has to adhere to the style and tone and the template that Zach set, says Emmerich.
Oh, man, what a funny quote.
We're not introducing any new characters. It's the same characters in some new scenes. He's handing the baton to Joss, but the course has really been set by Zach. I still believe that despite this tragedy, God, I can't even get through this. We'll still end up with a great movie. And then he says here, and with that first sentence, both the myth and the reality of the Snyder Cut was born. Maybe not. But you know what's kind of funny is I remember all this being said at one point.
Yeah.
And I actually vaguely remember it being Charles Roven saying this. But the fact that apparently is quoted as Toby Emmerich saying it just lends more to the fact of when he said here on the, on this, where great directors are the lifeblood of a studio, but they need great producers. And he goes on and on about bullshit. And I'm just like, why? Why would anybody believe a damn word that you say? You're clearly a lying sack of shit. And when you get further down into the article, it just shows more that when he talks about egos, and we've talked about this before, that I never thought when we first started this, money to me was never the big issue because I kind of figured it was a little bit more done than maybe it currently now understood to be. And we always said that the biggest thing holding it back was egos. And I think that's been our first approach to it since day one, was egos. And then you look at the person that said this quote and the fact that they're still in charge out of all the people that have been removed or transferred after that whole debacle. The fact that this guy, Toby Emmerich, is still in the chair and possibly growing even stronger at time. I'm comparing him to the Emperor basically here.
Dun, 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 dun.
Copyright. Anyway, it's kind of telling. And I guess the biggest bruised ego of this whole thing would probably be Toby Emmerich, because he was out there saying this stuff, that this was Zach's vision. And if you have a 3.5-hour version of a movie that's completely different than what we got in the theaters, I mean, to a drastic amount, in which we can pretty much guess at this point with the rumors and so forth, it just shows that the ego will take a huge hit. And as it also mentions in this article later on, the fact that if it is better, they actually do this comment like, "Oh, this was the movie that should have been. This is way better than the theatrical version." And I like how they bring that up. And I was like, "Wow, you guys really didn't know the difference between the theatrical and the ultimate cut, huh?" Because that's pretty much what everybody was saying after the ultimate cut came out, was that this should have been the movie. What the fuck are you doing? So they got that shit for 30 minutes. What happens when they get shit for an hour and 30 minutes of it?
Yeah, I think that's ultimately, and I believe it was in the Ringer article where they were talking about essentially the ego of the executives of now you have to release a movie where people are like, why the fuck did you not release this from the beginning? This is obviously so much better. And I feel they have to allow enough time to have passed before they can eventually go, okay, yeah, now it's time to release it. Or maybe Emmerich's not, leading the empire anymore or something. It's also interesting, yesterday, Justice League 2 would have been released. And if you look at the slates of what we were supposed to get originally, that was rumored and half somewhat confirmed, where you had the Green Lantern Corps, the Flash, Cyborg, Justice League 2, Wonder Woman 2. I believe Aquaman was slated as well, but it wasn't supposed to be released in December. Things like that. And then now the movies that they're working towards, with Birds of Prey and potentially an Aquaman 2 before we even get a Man of Steel 2. You can tell the course has changed for sure. And it's interesting when you see a lot of the stuff, that a lot of the logos that have been posted at certain conventions and things like that. And now we're not even sure that we're going to get half of those movies that were originally slated. So it's definitely interesting. And I don't think that we will see any chance of a Snyder type universe, at least not in anytime soon.
Not in film version. Yeah. I'm still hoping that eventually somebody pull their head out of our ass and we get a graphic novel series or a comic series or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't see how that's a bad idea. I mean, that's a good way to test waters too, to see what people, I think it's a fairly inexpensive way for the DC comic side. It doesn't even really have to do anything. I guess it does have to do some things with the film, but for the DC comic side, you just, you take some of that you make a graphic novel out of it. Snyder oversees it and stuff like that, and boom, you kind of get an idea of what people would have thought if when you see it panel by panel. And I don't know. So Chris Wong was interviewed for this. Funny, we are never interviewed.
Well, we're briefly mentioned.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
I will get to that. We are I'm mentioned as Guy. But Chris Wong says, I was actually happy with Justice League at first. What? No, not just kidding. It's actually funny. I went back and listened to our non-spoiler review of Justice League just to try to remember what the hell we said. And I think we were so determined to try to like it at first. I actually literally say the first time I watched it, I hated everything about it. I hated the way it looked. I hated the score. I hated the way the characters acted. I said I hated all this stuff. And then I was like, for the second time I watched it, I didn't expect anything good. So I kind of liked it. And I was like, man, I should have went with the gut instinct on the first time I saw it. Anyway, and he said, and I was like, oh, okay, well, they kind of made a cartoony, live action cartoon film with Justice League, and a lot of my friends actually enjoyed it because they had those elements. Aside from what happened with Henry Cavill's face, which was glaringly obvious, it actually made Shane miss all the dialogue in the beginning. I do like this, though, that this darker, more realistic portrayal of Superman. I don't get it, man. I really don't get, I guess maybe Batman versus Superman, but to say Man of Steel in any way is a dark movie, I don't know. I really just don't understand how it's a dark movie. And I'm not talking about it being night or daytime. I'm talking about like its tone is dark. I just think it's self-aware is more of anything than what it is. And that kind of falls under the realistic portrayal.
Yep, absolutely. Because it's not quippy like some of the other ones. There's not one-liners or anything like that. Then people just perceive it as dark. And that's typically what Zack Snyder's known for. But it's not. It's just takes itself a little bit more seriously. It questions beliefs and things like that and puts that out into the movie, and it is very self-aware. And yeah, I'm the same. Batman versus Superman, it's meant to be a little bit more darker, I guess,
because of Batman,
right? Exactly. And what they're kind of up against in the battle between the two. But yeah, Man of Steel, to me, there's so many moments in that are uplifting, and it blows me away.
And then Chris Wong here, the Snydercut of Justice League, whose precise nature of completeness is fundamentally unknown. Thus, the matter of much fierce debate is reportedly, yes, more than 3.5 hours long. Is it 70% done, 80% done, 90%, or far less? What does done mean exactly? And that's kind of something that that I've gotten a little annoyed with, is that a lot of people on Twitter keep repeating back what Snyder said in that video. It's done, without us really knowing at all what the hell he means by that. I mean, we could do it to the simplest terms that it's done, but realistically, we know it's not done. It's not fully completed. We all know that. And to keep repeating the word back, it's done, is, I think, a little disingenuous. I do my best on tweets that we do of just pointing out, the things that we do know, because people always say, oh, it's a rough cut. Well, we know it's not a rough cut because, he posted a picture of Wonder Woman doing the ADR work. We even have this timestamp from Skyline VFX of February 27, 2017. So we know VFX work's done. It's come in, and this was posted by Snyder as well on Vero. And of course, Jay Oliva's tweet is always a great. It may not be 100% polished, but all the planned scenes were shot and edited into a full timeline. And then, of course, the color grading right here, which, again, Snyder posted. So we know it's to a certain percentage done. A lot of post-production work is done. It's just not final post-production work is done. And I kind of feel like there's this weird area where it either has no post-production work done, or some people think it's all done. And so it's kind of this weird thing when I'm like, no, they got to a point where they did ADR color grading. Some of the VFX shots obviously were done, because we got a timestamp here from Skyline VFX. It's to a point. It's to a point. And I go back to what Fiona said here on April 29th of 2018. Almost finished VFX, more than 75%, could be 80%. Score needs to remix, but finished written. The source was a former WB staff who's close to the GL creative team. She/he was very solid. So again, I kind of go back to that where, yeah, it's to a point, it's done. And I kind of started looking back at some Jay Oliva tweets. And you go back to this one when a lot of people started misquoting Jay Oliva saying that the movie was 99% done. And he clearly says it was. That's not what he meant. What I meant with 99% is that all the scenes Zach envisioned was shot and exist in one form or the other or another. Of course, there are still VFX that is unfinished, but I never inferred that the film was 99% done. Rather than Zach's vision was all shot except for a few reshoots planned. Now, I want to talk about that. A few reshoots planned. Well, obviously, Jay Oliva was aware of some reshoots that Snyder wanted to get done. And we all know for a fact that Snyder never got to do those. And whether or not Whedon's reshoots were part of that idea, we don't know. But it made me wonder if there's any scenes that he wanted to change in his original version or any things that were going to be altered. Those VFX probably wouldn't be done because if he's planning to do reshoots, why do work on scenes that are going to get changed? So I'm just saying there's a possibility with some of the reshoots that Zack Snyder had planned. Hopefully they're not anything to do with the Joss Whedon stuff. That's something right there where that could be a lot of previs, whatever those changes might have been. Those are some of the sections that might have previs or no work done to them at all by VFX. So that's just kind of like a possibility that I was thinking of. Just a little thing I wanted to put out there.
It's funny when you look at that Jay Oliva tweet that was a year ago, and he's, bless the man, still fighting that same battle because there's still tweets from Jay Oliva that he's talking about the same thing. One from June 11th of this year. Zach then spent the next few months editing. Most people think that VFX start then, but that's not true. VFX can start as early as pre-production. If a scene doesn't require the actors like digital doubles, VFX can already start way before shooting. So he's talking about how far along the movie is. The tweet before that was, how can the movie be done? You're looking at the numbers wrong. Principal photography wrapped in December of 2016. And that's how we're able to get the movie far enough along to be close to whatever 99% or, with having a lot of the VFX not fully complete. And that's where the misinterpretation of John Campea and, a lot of them are saying, well, how can you say it's 99% complete? Or, some Snyder followers are saying it's 100% complete. It's completely done.
It's done.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It's done. They just need to release it. The Blu-rays, remember?
Yeah.
It's got the Blu-rays. But either way, there's some work that needs to be done, but it's a lot further along than what some of the naysayers may think. They think that, oh, nope, he stepped out and there's no form of any type of movie so you're asking for them to go and refilm a whole bunch of movies. That's not the case at all. It's a lot, film a lot more movies. I meant scenes that a lot of the naysayers are saying that actors have to come back and that's going to cost a bunch of money. So this is why the Snyder Cut doesn't exist and nor will it ever be released. Well, people who have actually worked on the movie are obviously saying, no, it's actually a lot further along aside from, maybe some reshoots that Zach wanted to do, things that they wanted to change or scenes that maybe they never even got to.
Right. And Jay Oliva, he is persistent. He keeps saying the same stuff that he's been saying for the last year and a half almost.
Yep.
He came on the scene early last year, and it's really helped us all understand things in a little bit more perspective. And I don't know if he's getting information or what, other than what he knows, because he kind of makes these remarks every once in a while, like, who my source was? Zack fucking Snyder would be his thing. And I always kind of wonder, I'm like, so wait, are you talking about just from experience with Snyder, or is Snyder giving you information? Like, are you asking him questions and Snyder's giving you information? Like, I don't know. I always speculated like whether or not he tries to gladly or like slightly hint at us to tell us like, hey, this is the information Snyder's telling me. Listen. Like, I don't know. I just I always wonder sometimes when he says that, or if he's just so close to it and he dealt with Snyder every day. This is just the stuff he knows.
That's what I feel like. He just has enough experience with Snyder and he worked with him. He's on the movie and he knows exactly the timeline of how everything worked out. So he knows how far along the movie was. Maybe he is getting answers from Snyder. We know Snyder is loving the amount of attention that this film is getting. He's constantly teasing us, the bastard, with these cryptic Vero posts and things like that. We're like, damn it, I can't believe it. And then even SnyderCon, more stuff. So yeah, I feel that Jay Oliva is just close enough to the situation in the movie itself that he knows how far along the movie was, and just working on it. And and he probably had to mock up some different things from maybe reshoots. So maybe he has information on some of the reshoots and stuff like that. That's just kind of what I'm guessing.
Yeah, and like I was just saying, I wonder if some of those reshoots kind of led to the fact that maybe some VFX weren't completed on this original cut that he had. Just a thought, that's all. It's just something that came to mind. The article also says about the first change.org petition released the Snydercut Director's Guide to Justice League, launched in 2018. It was closed nearly at 180,000 signatures, but is now, due to a hostile behavior of the original author, somewhat of a cursed document. Funny thing, Roberto Monta, good old guy. So, even though at this time, like, we really didn't have any kind of following at this crap, but that guy followed us. And he was a psychopath. That dude was just so weird. And I don't even know if it's there anymore, but I remember on one of the change.org updates that he did, it was like an update to his shitty ass doing a documentary update, and he actually named us in it as people that are turning their back on Snyder, which I thought was really, really funny. It was old, and it was a long time ago, and we're named in there with a couple other YouTube channels because we refused to promote his shitty ass documentary thing.
Yeah, which the hilarious part is in DMs with us. That's how he came up with the idea. Is we said something along the lines of, "This is going to make a crazy documentary." How all of this is unfolding and stuff like that, and then that's how we got the idea. And he's like, "Yeah, someone should make a documentary. We should make a documentary. I'm gonna make a documentary." And then in some quick falling out, it was quickly we turned our back on Snyder apparently, or some shit.
Well, also I got pissed at one point. I remember I got pissed at one point in the DMs and told him, like, "Dude, what the fuck are you talking about?" And I just started making fun of him nonstop, and then he blocked us. So anyway, that's our story. And I don't think we've ever said that. I don't think we ever brought that up anyway.
No, I don't think so either.
And then, he talks about the Wall Street Journal, questioned the workable Snyder Cut existed at all, provide divisive and disrupting movement, loose leadership. Okay, yeah, and I think he should have really called this out, because if you look at it, it was so piss poor. And whether or not it was a hit piece by WB, I see a lot of people speculating that they they did this. I don't know. I that seems insane. The fact that a studio would do that type of shit, that sounds very North Korea like, but it's wow, yeah, it's just an interesting concept if it's true or not.
I hope you can't hear my cat throwing up in the background.
I can.
He can't.
All right. Well, some of the comments is excommunicado.
Campia blocked me. Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to talk about real quick was,
other than cat throat.
Yeah. How stupid bastard. How quickly Campia jumped on, and we've talked about this before, but just on the popularity of bashing the DC universe, because he was the one guy who was talking about how awesome Man of Steel was, how people had their head up their ass for not really appreciating it. And then even for BVS, from what I recall, the theatrical version, he was defending it. They had a round table talking about it and everything like that. And then it was like shortly after that he just totally went away from it and then started just bashing Snyder's movies and just jumping on that same bandwagon of it's popular to talk shit on the DCEU. And it's crazy how quickly that has changed. And now he's doing the same thing. He continues to make jokes, maybe because it's getting a reaction. I'm not really sure, but it's incredibly frustrating, because Campia was the one guy that we're like, okay, yeah, maybe everyone else might not, from Collider, might not appreciate these movies, but at least we got one. And that quickly changed.
He still even defends Man of Steel, calling it like a masterpiece and stuff. He's persistent on it. He just, I don't know. He's dedicated to somebody somewhere, and this is the thing that I found very interesting. People that have like sources in WB, I feel like never got told the story, which is weird because you see all these people on Twitter start randomly talking about like, oh yeah, we saw an early cut of the thing and Silas died. And it was just like, wait. Where were you? Like, you know this stuff about this movie. There is people within the media that have seen Snyder's version in one form or another. They have seen this or they know information about it. They got information about it, but yet they're never defending it or they're never even saying anything or writing anything about it. It's asinine. It's just like for some reason there's like this like hush hush about it. Don't say anything. It's either from WB saying people get this idea that WB will maybe chastise them if they start putting out certain information, which Jay Oliva don't apparently give no fucks about that.
Yep.
And or it's just this weird thing. We keep seeing all these people talk about like, oh yeah, I remember this part. Like, yes, I still can't get over that. That was just like some random Twitter conversation, and some dude says Silas died. And like, wait, you know this? And like that, obviously they know more information than what they're letting on.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this weird hush thing over it. Like people know it exists. But I think for some reason the story from WB, and I think pretty much anybody's sources in WB, if they have one, a real one, is they're probably keeping it quiet. And they're just like, oh no, it's just an assembly cut. And I'm sure John Campea probably knows somebody in WB. They told him that. So he believes that guy or girl. And he's just sticking to that story. And it's kind of funny because there was a Mark Hughes on Forbes. There was a Mark Hughes article where he was talking about the Batman rumors with Pattinson and stuff like that. And he was talking about how he had 3 high up sources that told him Ben Affleck was not leaving the project. And then a week later, it came out Ben Affleck was leaving the project. And it was just kind of interesting. I think WB is just manipulating things now. They're trying to even manipulate the trades because they're tired of information leaking out. It just seems like even if you have a source, you may not know it. It seems like if you're going to have a source, I think you really need a source that's actually close to Snyder when it comes to this. And those are the ones that are more believable because they have no stakes in the game. So those are the ones that you're going to want to listen to if you apparently have on whatever your shit is. And so with the John Campea thing, I think he's just putting his foot down. And, he put, no, it doesn't exist. Snyder talking on stage, whatever. I have no idea what this hell the story is he's talking about. It's kind of funny. He makes up this story or he says this story. I'm like, dude, you have no idea who you're fucking with because most people in the Snydercut community have listened to every damn word that Snyder has put out in some form or fashion within the last like 4 years. Like you, and even farther back, really. Like you are not going to be able to say, yeah, he was on stage saying this stuff. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. You're either misunderstanding something or you have no clue what you're talking about. It's just fucking, it's funny that he thought he could get away with that. Every movie has different stages. And so I just kind of put out this thing. Sorry, John, we have proof of the story. Jay Oliva has worked on it. You didn't. No one has ever said it's completed, sitting in a vault somewhere. That is a non sequitur. Yeah, look at me. I used my cool ass thesaurus for that one. And, I just pulled up the Jay Oliva tweet and then another Jay Oliva tweet about not understanding film junker, director cut X. And and then ours was liked 133 times. And I think other than the Jay Oliva one calling him a dumbass, I think it was like one of the most liked ones, but he completely ignores that and then jumped into it's not fully sound mix, color graded, all the VFX done, score mixed in, ready, completed. That's what I'm talking about. I'm like, no, you called it an assembly cut right here. You said assembly cut at first. And then when people start calling you out saying, no, it's past an assembly cut, then you jumped all the way over to 100%. So it was a straw man. And then, of course, it started devolving into it's done. It's done. Well, no, it's not done. It's at some unfinished. Well, then it's not done. And so it devolved into some bullshit from there.
Why? My thing is, why the fuck does it even matter? Like, for the people who hate the Snyder Cut, why are you so adamant on proving Snyder followers wrong? Like, going out there and saying that no, it doesn't exist, get over it, move on, like all of these things. What does it fucking matter? Like, no one's bugging you. Let us do our thing, and maybe it doesn't exist. Maybe, and then we're the ones left going, damn it, I I wanted it to be released. But that's the thing with me is so many people are just adamant on, poking throwing these jokes out there, about the Golden State Warriors or whatever the fuck he said. I just don't understand what does it matter. Let us just continue to move on, raising a lot of money for different things, not even just for Comic-Con, but for important things like suicide prevention. It just is crazy to me. I don't understand why can't we just live in our world and you live in yours and fucking ignore it? But I guess Twitter doesn't lend itself to that, so that's why.
There is a guy here named Brooks Barnes, basically saying it's sad because there's zero chance that Warner will ever. There's zero chance they will. This will ever happen. The part of the reason involves money, and the part of the reason involves ego. So that's what I was talking about earlier, was the ego part, and the fact that Toby Emmerich is the one that stated that mess about Joss Whedon getting the baton from Zack Snyder is kind of where the ego part. Money, again, when we know how much VFX and how much everything is going to cost with residuals and stuff like that, maybe the legal battle is probably the biggest and biggest hurdle of all of it. And even for Zach to find time to complete it as well is another thing. So I know a lot of people are thinking maybe, and I think we were actually on a show with Zodwriter, and go check that out, by the way. It was Zodwriter, and it was, he kind of lended it to this fact that maybe some of it's done. Maybe Zach's been working on it this whole time. And I don't know. I think Stephen Colbert brought up some great things about the legalities of it, of non-union work, of like friends working on it and stuff like that. And I just don't see him being able to actually do that legally. It would be kind of tough. I know with the DGA rules and all that stuff, people have pushed that out there, but yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. I don't know if there really is two different versions, one that Zach has that's mostly done, and one that Netflix, or sorry, I was reading this, the one that Warner Brothers has that is not so done.
Yeah, just reading through some of these comments.
Yeah, I went back while you're reading those. I'll just kind of pop on here. It was funny because talking about 10 years, maybe I'm optimistic. History can repeat itself with the Richard Donner cut too. It's funny when I went back and listened to our Snydercon, like our third video on that thing. We actually kind of sat there like it's not coming out at Comic-Con, and it's clearly going to be a long haul, and it's going to be like a Richard Donner thing. And like we were saying that just coming out of the Snydercon thing, dead tired, and like it was just kind of, I think we were dead on at that time, of what the issue is with this movie overall. Of course, Zodwriter here, Joseph Todd, he got a couple comments in there. Anything from the chat?
Nope, just some great back and forth with a lot of people.
Great comment. I'm trying to find the part. Where am I mentioned here? Where is Guy?
Y'all are usually dead on. I don't know about that, but but we try, and especially the SnyderCon, we were dead tired on that one movie, or that one YouTube video that we did, and I think we just try to dissect certain situations and figure out like what makes the most sense to us, and and put it out there in terms of if it's going to be released in a Comic-Con, at a Comic-Con or anything like that, or when we feel that it might be released based on the information that we have. And we just, and it's funny because some people have even said that we're being negative on it when we're saying, no, it's not going to be released, this time, don't get your hopes up, things like that. But, we just try to take whatever information we have and what makes the most sense and say, yeah, I think it is going to come out at this point. This is how far along we think it is. And as more information continues to be released, maybe eventually we'll change our opinion, but for right now, it's the long game for sure.
So we're gonna change our intro to "I'm Guy."
I'm the other guy.
No, you're Shane. I'm just the guy. He signs a guy's poster, but also circles the number 214, ergo 214 minutes. or just over 3.5 hours. I mean, this obviously there was a lot of guys there that got their poster signed and circled. I think I only know of myself and Film Junkie. I don't even know if Chris Wong was circled or not. More than likely, but I just kind of thought that was funny. Like out of all this thing, he signs a guy's poster, but so I kind of felt like, yeah, that's me. I can type that in. I mean,
We've
like
always talked about we're the poochie. We're over here off to the side. It's cool.
Yeah, we're the third party, the third squeaky wheel. So this, he obviously talks about Jay Oliva. I mean, this article is very thorough. Yeah, it's a little long-winded, but that's kind of what happens when you have a year and a half of information that you have to try to compact into an article. And when you actually do some decent groundwork for the most part, like this guy did, I mean, he did miss a couple things here and there, but other than that, he did a pretty good job. So when you're kind of compact all that information in one article, of course it's going to be long-winded. Does he like Zack Snyder's movies? No, he clearly doesn't like Snyder's movies. But for the most part, he stayed somewhat objective and came into it with a reasonable outlook, and it's had effects. I have seen several people with blue check marks talking about how this is somewhat inspiring with some of the money that's going to obviously to suicide prevention, which is obviously a great thing as well. It's an interesting thing. It's definitely a precedent that will definitely shake the ground whenever it happens. I don't know when it's going to happen. I'm down for the digital download as is at first, and then we can see what goes from there. Maybe even a graphic novel at first. If you want to go fucking really cheap, maybe a graphic novel of his original idea, and then we can see what the Justice League movie was going to be compared to his original script to that one. See how many changes there was. How much did he compromise on it for the most part? I still like that. I mean, there's money somewhere here, and there's people that would be interested in it. I can't tell you how many times I see still on Twitter where people saying, what is the Snyder Cut? Like the casuals just don't know. And articles like this and the ones that keep following afterwards, like Heroic Hollywood, UK movies, Yahoo UK movies, IndieWire, all these other people, as long as they keep talking about it, this generates buzz. And whether or not it's good or not, most of this is good. Some people are leaving out the suicide prevention part of it, where the money's going. That's their. I don't know. I guess I expect sites like that to always fuck up anyway and leave out information that would go against a narrative that they want to do. But anyway, it's going to happen. But the fact that they're pointing stuff out is just, this is good. This is what we needed. We need more groundwork, and maybe Project Comic-Con, when you have a banner, a poster. I mean, Will Rollins just shared that bus wrap that it's possibly going to be. That looks fantastic. So definitely, that's definitely going to be kind of cool. It's going to be a big bomb at first, and hopefully it does some work, and hopefully we can build off of that afterwards with some other stuff and start getting more into the digital part of everything as well.
Yep, I think the more just out there that this whole movement becomes, the more people are knowledgeable about it, and with these articles, it definitely helps. The more we will be able to raise funds for and continue to do awesome things like what's going to happen at Comic-Con, and also raise money for suicide prevention. So it's good stuff, and it's cool to see some of the people that I work with where I'm trying to explain. They are the most casual comic book movie goers that you will ever meet. They barely know who Zack Snyder is. And when I'm talking to them about all this stuff, and then they see the articles, and then they come to me and say, hey, I just saw this article about the Snyder Cut that you were talking about. And that's pretty eye-opening to me, where I'm like, all right, finally, we're starting to gain interest from casual people who are like, huh, that was supposed to be an entirely different movie. And, they've seen Justice League and stuff like that. And who knows, maybe we can convert some people to this cult that we all seem to be following.
Oh, Stephen Colbert's in the chat right now. I was trying to figure out. I just saw somebody saying Colbert coming in to burst Matt's bubble, and I'm like, what? What'd I do? And I just now noticed that he's in here as well. Good seeing him in here. Yeah, so that's just kind of like the run up, man. Like, hopefully this gains traction, and hopefully it's a little bit. It's going to be interesting, man. When this thing happens, it's going to be history, and hopefully we're on the right side of history. And that's what I think it is that from the beginning, as much as it's been called crazy and it's just about a movie and stuff, which I understand, it's a movie. It is a crazy scenario when you think about it, how much different it is, the studio involvement and what they did with the situation, how they handled it, and how they're trying to hide it right now, and continue to try to hide it and just ignore it as much as possible and hoping it's going away. And it doesn't seem to be going away. Things are building. And with articles like this and people like I've mentioned him before, Paul on Twitter and others like Shadow Vessel. And I know I'm forgetting other people as well, but you're out there, you're on Twitter, you share things, you try to give the information as politely as possible and say, hopefully you change your mind, I think is a good tactic. And when you see the people say that there's a completely different version of the movie, ? That's the people. That's when you got like, gotcha, bitch. Like, just go for them. That's the ones that you need the most. And so that's what I find. It's kind of, I don't know. Anyway, it's what we needed. And this is the good shot in the arm. And then hopefully Project Comic-Con brings that similar shot in the arm. Real quick, I did see somebody ask earlier about the third part of our Snydercut series. We're definitely working on that. We're getting couple people asking us more and more about that, and we have some really cool ideas. We're going to have like a round table conversation with some of the women that we know in basically Shane's wife, my girlfriend, and another woman as well that was on here. She was the Captain Marvel fan as well. We're going to have them. They're not really tied to this at all. That like they really don't pay attention to anything we do, so they're kind of
barely know we have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, they're non-biased, and so we just want to have this roundtable discussion with them, and that's what we're trying to set up right now. And then we also got this cool little like 10 to 15 minute thing we're going to be doing. We're going to use a particular YouTuber's video as a template and pretty much shit all over his stupid reasons and refute everything he says with our facts and information. That's kind of how that next Snyder Myths one, and we're hoping to make it a really awesome video. And that's what we're trying to do. And it's just time and getting things together is just it's exactly. Pain in the ass.
Coordinating all of it.
Yeah.
Real quick, Carlos Gonzalez, I saw that you put it's not a cult because it's real. That was an inside joke from even the podcast that we did with Zod Rider recently, where we talked about the SnyderCon. We were having so much fun, and there's so many people that felt the same as us. We're like, did we just join a cult? Like this is nuts. So that's what I was talking about when I said this Snyder cult. So just to clarify,
I said we're cult when we were sitting in the Watchmen thing, man, and Zack Snyder was laying down the info on wake the fuck up and everything, and Shane and I were leaning forward in our seats, clapping and just wide-eyed and like yes, and like everything he was saying, hang on every freaking word that he was saying, and I was just like, fuck, Shane, we're in a cult.
Yeah.
And it was funny. I see now what Colbert was saying. He says I was saying there was he says he signs a guy's poster but also circles the number 214, ergo 214 minutes. He links to one of Dave's tweets. So it's not even us. So I guess we're good.
Okay.
So we're good.
Dang, we're even more poochy than we realized. We thought we were just somewhat mentioned a little bit because we had talked about how we circled the Matt's poster and everything. No, it's not even us. Fuck.
It's funny too because I remember when I yelled release the Snydercut, and a lot of people thought it was one of us or something like that, and I saw that, but I still noticed in other like feeds and stuff, some thought it was Dave, the film junkie, and I'm like, he wasn't even there, and him and I sound completely different. Like, I don't even know how you got that fucking thing, but hey, might as well give the credit to Dave, right?
Yep. Sure. we love you, Dave, but damn,
taking all the credit.
I know you have slightly more subscribers
just a little
on YouTube
bit,
than we do. Just
a tad. Just a tad. So hopefully we got some cool projects coming out, and that's what we want to do with the Snyder Myths one. I just wanted to just talk about the what we're doing and stuff like that. Sorry, I was reading this tweet. Colbert says, I think Dave credits you for the 214. Oh yeah, I don't really care. We're used to it, man. We're fucking used to it. It's really almost never about credit for us because we're not scoopers. You know, we're not cool like that. It doesn't matter to us. And in the end of the day, as long as the information comes out,
Exactly.
and people are aware of it. I just thought it was, you know, if you look at our video of us melting at 1 a.m. in the morning trying to explain the shit, and that we forgot everything in the car and all that stuff. Yeah, it's we're there, and it took us a while to put our photo up and stuff like that, but we're there in some manner.
Yeah,
Just dying
exactly.
slowly. We're a small page. I don't really give a crap in the end of the day. I just want the right information to be out there. So that's gonna I'll just look and see. Oh, some Triton asked if our DC or our MCU fanboy friend, I think he's talking about Nick, is interested in the Snyder Cut. I don't know. We haven't really asked him at all. I know when we did Justice League, he said they should just stuck to his tone in general. So
Yeah.
I think he would have liked that. We do plan on having hopefully uh hopefully we can start doing some stuff. And I want to get Nick. We want to get Nick back on here again and start doing stuff with Nick again, and having him have that be that opposite voice and stuff like that, so we can have more of a menage a trois of different views. I guess
Yeah,
it would be.
exactly. I have talked to Nick a little bit about the Snyder Cut, and he's just more aware of it. He hasn't really given an opinion on either way if he cares to see it or not. But he just kind of knows like, okay, that's pretty cool, and he's a big avid film goer as we are, so he I think just wants to, he's curious to see kind of what comes of it. You know, he's familiar with a lot of things, the changes that have happened with Star Wars and Blade Runner, and you know, name endless list of movies that have been changed because of studios and things like that. So I think he's just more curious than anything, but he's not really like clamoring for it like we are.
So thanks again, guys. This thing got almost up to 70 people in the middle of the afternoon on a Saturday. So that's insane for us.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Thanks a lot, guys. We got a lot of people that follow us and help us out and stuff like that, and hopefully we can continue to grow this stuff. We got really cool video plans coming down the line. You know, hopefully it all comes out, and like our streaming service video, our mediocrity winning video and stuff like that. Those are like little video essays that's kind of where this channel hopefully will start to go for the most part, is doing those cool type of video essays and stuff like that, these analysis of stuff. It just takes us a long time to do stuff like that, and we want to try to get content out, and that's kind of the reason why we did this live stream right now, was because to get content out and keep people updated on stuff and talk
so
to
we don't disappear into the abyss.
Yeah, into
Hard
the
World
YouTube
Entertainment. We will definitely we'll have to direct message or something, and we'll get you on soon.
Yeah,
so
definitely,
we can
man.
Investigate further.
Yeah, we definitely got to coordinate some stuff, and we got to get some things down better. Hopefully some ideas later on here will pan out, and we'll be able to do this a lot more. So,
yep.
Okay. And in case I don't see you,
good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
I have no idea how to stop this thing. There we go.